A deal with the devil, the overthrow of God, and eternal domination coming your way. On all demons must go to hell. Good morning, welcome to the channel. I'm Old Dead Man. After my recent playthrough of the self-described worst adventure game ever created, which I enjoyed tremendously, it was a lot of fun, I came up with some ideas as to what was going on behind the scenes, the unspoken pieces of the puzzle that may have been outside the actual adventure game, outside the direct experience of Wilhelm. But make no mistake, he is a cog in a machine that is so enormous that there is no question but that evil is behind it. Okay, granted, evil is behind it because Teufelstein is the head of human resources for this. But anyway, let's continue on and we'll take a look at what's coming and what might be going on behind the scenes at a certain unexpectedly diabolical member of this particular team. Let's start off with a summary of the plot here. By the way, spoilers, this is going to go into enough detail on several things, but be warned, if you haven't played the game, go ahead and go do that real fast. It could take anywhere from 1 to 4 hours, so I'll wait. Okay, we're back. Alright, so summary of the plot here. Wilhelm is a recent hire to Viridian Mantle Group, a corporate entity that values efficacy and discipline as core traits in its corporate structure. He is awoken in his office by the public address system as manned by enigmatic prankster Ewan. After a brief conversation and a mission to complain to the CEO about the childish two-way speaker system user, Wilhelm exits his office to find the facility has been drastically redesigned. After wandering the resulting labyrinth, he finds the Teufelstein information booth and has a conversation wherein it's made clear that the man crewing the booth is actually the devil. It is revealed that Ewan and Teufelstein have made a bargain or a bet, with the prize being Wilhelm's soul. At this point, I need to take a brief detour to explain something I was not familiar with. The name Teufelstein comes from a geological site in the Fischbach Alps that, legend has it, is the place that Lucifer, aka Satan, aka the devil, was cast down to from heaven. In this place, he attempted to build a tower to get back to heaven. Note that this matches closely with the Tower of Babel of biblical fame. The location retains a cult significance and is an interesting detour into Austria for tourists. Now on to the deal with the devil. Ewan and Teufelstein have agreed to run Viridian Mantle's HQ through a purgatory gauntlet scrambler. Ewan says that Wilhelm can make it to the CEO's office. Teufelstein says he can't and to hurry up so he can claim his prize. Ewan calls it the Wilhelm Schengen Agreement, while Satan calls it a waste of my time. Satan is, of course, in human resources, obviously, since it's the most obviously evil thing ever. As Wilhelm carries on, he discovers the murdered mailman, the evil gumball machine of evil chewingness, and clearly the source of Teufelstein's gum, since you have to fix this enormous machine to get more gum. The cafeteria, and Hell's mailbox. After avoiding roaming nuisance Gary, the random labyrinth monster, and repairing the AI lock to the CEO's door, Wilhelm successfully enters through the apparently potentially pearly gates. This resulted in an argument from a bemused Ewan and an apparently ticked-off Teufelstein, wherein it's made clear that Wilhelm was a demon that needed to go to hell. You might say this result to the Purgatory Gauntlet Scrambler means there will be hell to pay. So let's take a look at some of the pieces here. What are the parts to the puzzle? Well, first off, there's Viridian Mantle Group. Now, they spell it differently in 2 different locations in the game, so that does bring some additional variation in possibilities here. So what is this enigmatic corporate entity that hired Wilhelm Schengen for his discipline and efficacy? While I was not able to find a company with this specific name, I did find a few possible references. And could any of them be relevant? There is Viridian Weapons Systems out of the United States if you want to go with a more Tony Stark-like reference. though it looks like the company deals primarily in optics and lights instead of firearms. It seems rather unenigmatic to be an inspiration for the Viridian Mantle Group. Viridian Energy is based in Texas, home of the near collapse of the Texas power grid during the surprise Arctic temperatures over this last winter. I discount this possible reference mainly because the game was designed with a primarily Europe-based crew. But it is a possibility. There is, of course, Viridian, referencing the bluish-green pigment consisting of a hydrated oxide of chromium. While interesting and possibly the source of the name, this doesn't really illuminate anything about this company. If you take the letters of the name, you potentially get Velocity Made Good, a reference to sailing and yacht racing, consisting of the speed of a sailboat in the direction of its destination. As sailboats cannot sail directly into the wind, and that taking certain tacks off the wind can result in greater absolute velocity. The velocity made good is a direct reference to how much closer you are getting to your goal, regardless of actual direction of travel, which well describes many of the things that happen in the game as you may be going in the exact opposite direction of the CEO's office to get to your end result of the CEO's office, but you're still having a velocity made good in that direction. There is the Viridian design movement, which is based on bright green environmentalist philosophy. While this sounds like a potentially popular reference, it would not usually fall into the enigmatic territory either. There's more references in video game culture to Viridian, such as Viridian City in the Pokemon franchise and home to the final gym, which could be a reference to the final judgment of Wilhelm's soul as he reaches his final destination. There's also references to Knights of the Old Republic 2, where you can use a Viridian lightsaber crystal. League of Legends, Kale has a Viridian costume that's green with black wings. Phoenix Wright has a running joke about the color. And Aviary Attorney has a Viridian killer responsible for murders in France in the 1830s. So what conclusions can we reach about this mega corporation? Discounting the unlikely references, Viridian Mantle Group could be any company, but we know a few details based on the material in the game. It's a large enough corporation to have a CEO and a headquarters building of at least some substantial size. It includes a garden or arboretum on premises, as well as such amenities as a company cafeteria. It's also large enough to justify the evil gumball machine of evil chewingness, which is large enough to have a mid-sized military chewing gum simultaneously. The facility is equipped with a public address or two-way speaker system with a backup operator. Thus, Viridian must be a fairly large corporate organization of at least 500 souls on payroll, possibly much more, with discipline being a key trait sought. Wilhelm himself must be reasonably important, as his office was described as being right down the hall from the CEO, likely placing him as a C-level executive recently hired, or a toady upper management type. The fact that it is apparently not unusual for him to be sleeping in his office could also indicate either a startup that has grown much faster than expected into a corporate behemoth, or maybe a fringe perk for particularly quirky corporate structure. Since there's 4 desks in his office utilizing an open floor plan, I am leaning toward toady upper management and a somewhat quirky corporate structure, which belies the discipline and efficacy argument to a certain degree. However, that does point to a structure that may be intended to feed a military complex somewhere, such as weapons research or high-end internet data tasks, such as compiling dossiers on everyone in the world. I'll leave you to conclude which companies might fit that particular bill. Ewan and Teufelstein may be part of this corporate structure, or may only be running the structure of the Purgatory Gauntlet Scrambler using a corporate overlay. After all, what's more evil than corporate structures? After all, Teufelstein is stated to be in HR, but not necessarily Viridian's HR. My conclusion is that Ewan and Teufelstein are not actually part of the Viridian corporate staff, and thus are just taking part in the Scrambler as the staff for it. Yes, that means that Satan is the HR director for Purgatory and runs the information desk there, a true form of hell all in and of itself. So who is Ewan, really? Ewan is an enigma throughout. However, there are a few potential references to who Ewan is and his role in the Purgatory Gauntlet Scrambler. Clearly, Ewan is meant to be a representative for God, though not God himself, which is represented at the end, telling Wilhelm to choose to live and be a better joke. Could Ewan be the angel Gabriel in disguise? Or possibly Peter, who guards the pearly gates? Or is there something more sinister afoot? Ewan could be a reference to a role played by Ewan McGregor in Angels and Sinners. While I will not go through the plot of the movie, I've never actually seen it, it could be that Ewan is working to subvert God's will through this bargain, or to uphold his will through creating a path for even more demons to be redeemed from their evil and brought into heaven. This could even cause the destruction of God by destroying the natural order of demons being subject to hell and angels to heaven. So what is his role? Well, Ewan? So why would the devil make this bargain, though? Teufelstein already has claim on Wilhelm Schengen. Why would he make this deal? The ending makes it clear that he expects the soul to still be delivered to his organization. So is this a temporary bump on Wilhelm's eternal voyage to the damned? What has Satan gained by allowing this waste of time? What does he really know about Ewan and his motivations? He knows every backstabbing politician, every shady CEO, every hooker, everything. But does he know Ewan's angle? And does God make deals with the devil? Well, the story of Job indicates that God may allow Satan to tempt even God's very best, somewhat at the behest of Satan. Yet Job proves that he is faithful through it all. I would not take this as a literal, but a case can be made that God or his representatives might make such bargains. In a similar vein, demons that possessed a man were allowed to be cast out into a herd of swine at their request, as part of a bargain of sorts. Again, how literally you take this depends on your interpretation of the Bible. At least in the lore of this world, a case can be made where God or his representatives might make a deal in hopes of saving a marginal soul from eternal damnation. In that same vein, the devil may make such deals to speedily guide his souls down to hell. This accelerates the timetable for one Wilhelm Schengen, of course. So what other references can we maybe pull in here to maybe fluff out the overall understanding of this game? Well, the Schengen Agreement in real life was a treaty signed in the early 90s between European countries that allowed for open borders without internal checkpoints between the signatory nations. This has allowed a larger European Union with minimal travel restrictions to happen in recent years. Could this indicate that the borders between heaven and hell are being opened for selected crossovers? With the fruit being a possible reference to the tree of everlasting life or the forbidden fruit from the Bible, Satan's acceptance of it from Wilhelm could also signify a change in the overall plan, allowing demons possibly to enter into heaven or achieve everlasting life if certain preconditions are met. An outside reference possibly being made, which I admit is entirely unsupported except in my fever-pitched theorizing mind, could be to a Western movie named Purgatory. For those unfamiliar, this movie details an Old West criminal gang stumbling upon a tiny town in the middle of nowhere named Refuge. These people are meek, non-violent, just trying to get by without causing any waves. As the movie continues, the youngest member of the criminal gang starts to realize that the people here are famous outlaws or other notable people that he knows are dead. It turns out that Refuge is a place where the marginally good are sifted from the hopelessly wicked as a form of final judgment. If these marginally good people can survive 10 years in Refuge without drinking, getting into fights, swearing, and thus become meek, they can enter into heaven justified before God. Hijinks ensue, but definitely go watch that movie. It's a good one. So what is my unhinged conclusion? Where has my fever-pitched mind gone? What, with all these data points, well, where does that even bring us in understanding what is happening and all demons must go to hell. I declare that the Ewan McGregor reference is too powerful to be ignored. Ewan is actually working to subvert the will of God by dealing directly with the devil himself. This may be to empower himself to take over heaven and hell both by binding God and Satan to his interpretation of the Wilhelm Schengen agreement. By eliminating the hard borders between the two, a la the Schengen agreement, and including his own serpent, Wilhelm, to give Satan the forbidden fruit grown with Miracle Grow, he has paved the way for both locations to become blended and inextricably intertwined. With this new eternal order, he would have both God and Satan indebted to him, and thus usurp the power of both. If God accepts Wilhelm into heaven, despite being a demon that must go to hell, then Ewan's master plan will be complete, eternal domination. This may put him more in line with Loki than Gabriel, but is it ultimate power worth a few insane risks? However, there is one fly in the ointment, one part that Ewan, despite his preparations, has failed to account for. God loves a good joke, and Wilhelm still needs time as a mortal to become a good joke. Thus, Ewan's plan was stymied not from lack of preparation, but from a lack of insight into the nature of God's sense of humor. Thus, Ewan has managed to grant a temporary stay on Wilhelm's eternal judgment, but not actually take over himself. Is this the end of Ewan's machinations? Not by a long shot. As we said earlier, Viridian's HQ must be sizable. Possibly hundreds of potential demons that are still need to be run through the gauntlet. One may yet be found to be a good joke. So what do you think of my theory? Is it something that you think might be possible? What was going through the fevered minds of the Space Quest historian and Torpedo Bear as they created this monstrosity of a game? Will we ever truly know? Who knows? But you'll find out if I do next time. Thank you for joining me today, and we'll see you in All Demons Must Go to Hell. Psst. Hey guys, this is a new kind of video for me. What did you think of it? Let me know in the comments, because I'd really like to know. Thanks a bunch. You have a great one. Bye.